All right, here we go. You guys are the lucky ones, the first ones to ever see a screencast made by Mr. Moreno. I would really appreciate your input as to what you like about these screencasts, what you don't like about the screencast. I'm going to do everything in my power to not say and but I will. I know I will, so please don't make fun of me. I think I just did it right there. Also, let me tell you how this is going to work. I'm going to go through the slides. I'm not going to read the entire slide to you, maybe snippets here and there. But you guys are pretty smart people. Everybody's, STEM gifted, magnet, avid, and I just don't. I hate those PowerPoint presentations where you walk in and the person is reading the slides to you and like you're an idiot. And I know every one of you guys, when we're all in the room, I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, so I'm not going to do that to you. So let's go through this PowerPoint presentation. It's going to come in two parts. Today we're focusing on part 1. So here we go. Chapter 9, Applying Population Ecology. And if you take a look at the backdrop, you can see the city landscape there, giving us some insight as to what we're going to be talking about, which is cities, populations, and how they interact with the environment. Also how these populations grow and how they decline and things that we can do to affect that. So let's take a look. First thing we need to know about are developing countries, because we're going to hear this term a lot in the chapter. In developing countries, you can read that there. They're poor agricultural countries, and they have a very large level of the population that is below the poverty line. I think a misconception here is that the entire population is below the poverty line. That's just not the case. If you go to each of these countries, there are some very rich people that are doing very well. It's just that the majority of the people are not. And we tend to think of things like low or high infant mortality rate, rather, which is children that die before the age of 1, and high rates of disease and access to health care and all kinds of things. And so that's what we're thinking of when we talk about developing countries. And you can take a look at this list. I got it from Wikipedia. I did check to see their resource in this, and it was pretty accurate, so I'm going to go with it. Don't tell your other teachers. I don't want to hear it from them. And if you take a look at developed countries, we are a developed country, and it was more difficult to find a consistent definition for developed country. Some people were made at reference to income per capita, technology, the level of production, industrialization, the ratio of food production to infant mortality, and all kinds of weird things. But when we look at developed countries, we're one of them. And I tend to think of, at least for myself, I think of the level of health care, the infant mortality rate, how advanced we are as a society compared to others. And don't get me wrong, we definitely have our own poverty-stricken populations here in the United States as well. We're not without that just because we are a developed country. But I guess maybe the thing to think of is that the number of people in that area is much smaller than those developing countries. Anyway, here's a couple pictures of some cities that I'd like you to take a look at. China, and it doesn't look much different than Los Angeles. I was in traffic just like that today. And we also take a look at Brazil, and take a look at this, man. The density of people here just per square foot. I mean, they're stacked up on top, and it just runs right up to this city. I don't know which city that is, but yeah, you can see that there's definitely some high population problems in this area. Okay, and this is what's going to happen. If we don't do something about this, you guys as the environmental scientists are going to have to do something to keep our planet from just turning into one big ball of cement with buildings on it. I don't even know where we're going to grow food at some point, but that's for you guys to figure out. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the problem and see here. These are the overview questions for the chapter. I'm not going to read them to you. I'll just go through them. You can take a look. We're going to look at how population is expected to grow, things that affect population, how it differs between males and females, what we can do to slow that growth down, if anything at all, we're going to pay special attention to China and India, because let me tell you, China and India are really growing. When you see the numbers, you're going to be kind of shocked. And we're going to take a look and see what activities that we do that can impact natural ecosystems. So take a look at that list there. Okay, let's move on. All right, so there was a case study that we looked at, and there was some debate over how much the population of the planet is going to increase. Some people are saying it's going to go up to 6.6, some say to 9.2. I saw some that said even higher, up into the 10 billion numbers. But, and there's a lot of things that can happen. We have, wars, disease, a meteor could come and hit the planet, who knows, and that would definitely bring the population down. But a lot of this growth is going to happen in these developing countries because their populations are growing so tremendously, especially with a big focus on India and China once again. And when you see the numbers, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay. So take a look at this. Here is a big picture right on top of my slide. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I hope I fixed it. Let's take a look. So we're going to take a look at the planet and see if it's overpopulated. There's a lot of debate. So obviously some people say the planet has too many people. I tend to be one of those, but who am I? I'm nobody. And here's some reasons as to why. It's going to affect, natural resources. And as Americans, we want to point the finger at a lot of other people. And we're going to take a look at China and India. Again, you look at these populations and we say, oh my gosh, it's obviously because of them, that there's this big problem, with population. But when we take a look at the numbers, take a look at these. Look at this. We got 5% of the world. That's us. But we use 23% of the coal, 27% of aluminum, 19% of the copper, and I don't circle very well. But you can take a look at those numbers and you say, wow, man, we're using quite a bit. It's a little excessive, and I don't know what we're willing to do as a population to change it. We recycle plastic bottles, but some countries don't have plastic bottles at all. Is recycling the solution? Maybe not using things as a solution, who knows? But, we'll find out in the near future. You guys are going to have to solve this problem. Here's some more arguments. Some people think that the planet can take more people, billions more people. And their argument, I don't really get it myself. I know I'm not supposed to take sides in this sort of thing, but I don't really understand. They say the reason we're not solving the problem is because there's a shortage of people. If we have more people, then we'll have more people able to solve that problem. But we have some pretty smart people now, and I don't know how we're not solving the problem yet, but I don't know if more people is the solution. Religion and morals get involved as well. And, you can take a look at that. Some people, it's their religious practice to have a lot of kids. Some people are worried about their rights. They don't want government telling them what to do. And, as Americans, we're pretty, staunch about that. It's something we very much believe in. And, some people consider it a form of genocide. They're trying to keep certain populations down. And I don't know, here's something for you to think about. Should the population of the country where you live be stabilized as soon as possible? And read through those answers. There's 2 for yes and 1 for no. Take a look. What do you think? All right, you ready for the answer? According to scientists who know more than us about this, the correct answer is... There is no way that I'm going to touch this. I'm not going to go near it. I like LEUSD coffee cake, and I am no one to answer this question. That is for you guys to decide. There is no right answer, and you're going to have to defend that. So let's see. Get ready. All right. Human population growth. Let's take a look here. Let's do the math. There's been an expansion of agriculture, and there has been an improved medicine and hygiene. So with more food plus a lower death rate, that equals what? More people. How many more? Well, in 2006, populations are going to grow accordingly. Take a look at those numbers. Developed countries in comparison to developing countries. Who's going to grow quicker? And how much? Take a look at those numbers. We're only going to be growing in developed countries at what this number is here, 0.1%, and as opposed to 1.5% in developing countries. That's a lot more people. That's right. You keep spinning around there, pal. And let's move on. Take a look at this. This is what shows exponential growth. These graphs we saw before when we were looking at population growth in chapter 8, I believe. And this is straight exponential growth with no limitations. Here's exponential growth with a turn towards carrying capacity. Now remember, our graph did look a little bit different. It had an overshoot and it came back down. But yeah, there we go. Okay, where are we going to be going in the future? Gosh, take a look at those numbers. I found 10.6 billion in the textbook, and the textbook tended to contradict itself on these numbers. 97% of the growth is going to be in developing countries, and that's going to be below the poverty level, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Where the food for these people is going to come from is a big concern, not only for the United States but the rest of the planet, and these countries obviously have to worry about that. So we'll take a look and see how that turns out. We got to take a look at carrying capacity and what that really means. We don't know what the carrying capacity of the planet is, and especially with respect to nature, we can keep destroying natural environments if we'd like to, just to create more place for agriculture. But where are these animals going to live? So the question then really comes up as to what organisms are going to go extinct in your lifetime. So you're going to see something go, and we'll figure this out. So this is what the UN projects, and here are where the numbers are coming from. And if we continue with this high 2.5 children per woman, we'll have this high number here. And with the medium birth rate, 8.9, and with the low birth rate, 7.2, and that's with 1.5 children per woman. Now, obviously, they're not going to have half a kid. It's just an average thing. So we got to figure. Look at how we do averages and determine, how you get 2.5 and 1.5 children. That's a lot of people. Okay, so there it is, blown up a little bit larger. And look how the population has grown since 1950. We were down at 2 billion. Look where we're at now. We're at 2014, and we're somewhere in here in this number, 6 point something billion. That's a lot of people. What kind of things affect the population size? Births plus immigration, that's people moving in, and minus deaths and emigration, people moving out. So take a look at these. Thomas Malthus, he said that human population was going to continue to grow exponentially, but food growth would be linear. Now, we've already seen an exponential growth curve. That's obviously going to have that curve that's sliding up. But if you take a look at this linear growth curve, straight up and down. But he was wrong. It turns out food growth has been exponential as well, and that was not what they expected. And especially with advancements in agriculture, even in my lifetime, the amount of food that we can produce is ridiculous. If you think about it, it gets a little crazy. How is it that a hamburger can cost less than an apple, and an apple basically just grows on a tree and falls in your hand, but a hamburger, you got to raise a cow, and somehow or another at the end of that we can make that cheaper than an apple. That's pretty impressive. I don't know if it's good or bad, but it is definitely impressive. Okay, and here's something that I was looking at because it got me thinking about how much food do we throw away in Los Angeles Unified School District. So take a look at this. right? So I like to point out the flaws in LAUSD, but maybe it's not LAUSD all the time, and we got to be a little more open-minded. Okay, so this is going to be the end of part one of part one. I'm limited to 15-minute videos here. So coming up next will be another video. So be ready to go. I will end this now. Go get a drink of water or do what you do.